Coming up on today's episode.
Still a pressure to be able to kind of still logistically sort everybody's day out, make sure everybody has everything they need every single day, my kids and my husband included, to run, to know what we're having for dinner every evening, to make sure that, there's food in that, whilst trying to still build my careers, do whatever. And then when you get to suddenly my age, if you're certainly perimenopausal, I do feel you do get the no fucks given hormone kick in.
Welcome to Spirit in Sass, the podcast where intuition meets attitude and real talk gets a little more magical. Hosted by us, Kelly Clark and Jodie Mayhead. This is your space for soulful insight, honest conversations and a few laughs along the way.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Spirit in Sass. We are here again, and I'm going to be totally transparent. Today has not gone as planned whatsoever. You might have seen on our socials last week, Kels did a brilliant explanation on Mercury retrograde and what that was all about, and we were all feeling the energy. And then at some point I did post a pic of us two wearing exactly what we're wearing now, looking really deflated. And that is because we were trying to record this episode, because we do them a week in advance, because we're not tech able to do it on the day and get it out in time in case things go wrong. And the episode just did not happen as we planned, not helped by the fact that I coughed up a lung about 8 minutes in and literally choked myself in front of everybody. And then Kels, did an absolute sterling job of keeping it going whilst I'm still hacking up a lung in the background. And then I came in and I had this overwhelming feeling that the episode just was not flowing as it should. And for some reason, this just didn't feel aligned this week. So then Kels got me quietly in her ear going, do we pause it? I think we need to start again. And obviously at that point we've had to. So here we are. This is us starting again. And we are absolutely going to just run with it this week. And we are changing our topic because obviously we do have our episodes mapped out a little bit on what we want to talk about each week. And this week we are going rogue. So it was going to be about habits and how they are supposedly healthy, but they actually aren't always. And we've shelved that for a moment. And this week we're going to talk about pressure, because that's what I'm feeling today. I'm desperate to put a good episode in for you guys. And we've had such amazing feedback. Everybody's been so wonderful that I've almost felt the pressure now to absolutely live up to that expectation. I think today it's absolutely got the better of me. So this is it. This is what we're doing. This is it.
I could do a number of songs, Jade. I feel like I want to burst into song now. I do feel a bit more energized. We just took ourselves out the room, went outside, grounded, sat with things for a little minute, tried to recalibrate the energy, and then sort of got things going again. And actually, I feel quite happy with where we've landed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So pressure is a really interesting topic, because it's something we feel every day. There probably isn't a day that passes unless you're able to you're on holiday and you're by the pool. Generally speaking, in our everyday lives, there will be some form of pressure. Pressure to pay a bill, pressure to go to work, pressure to perform in a project, to be the best parent, to be the best partner, whatever that looks like, there is a level of pressure. And what we know is that pressure can be incredibly helpful. And I know, being neurodivergent, that there are some things that I will only perform under pressure with. And that's not always great, but it does help me in certain respects. And we'll share lots of stories about when we've felt good pressure and when we felt not so good pressure. But the problem is when that pressure becomes toxic, when we're doing it for other reasons that don't support or align with our higher self and our better good, and when it starts to take a toll on our mental health, our well-being, our physical attributes, that's when we've got to address, okay, what is going wrong here and how do we manage this moving forward? So we were kind of thinking about when we felt some times where good pressure and when we felt bad pressure. I don't know if you want to share, Jade, or if you want me to dive into that.
No, dive in by all means. I'm very much the same. I'm also neurodivergent. That's something I've learned through my children. And pressure, like you, Kels, absolutely can do me a solid at times, because I do tend to leave everything to the last minute. So if I have a deadline in 2 weeks' time, in my mind, that's like forever away, and I don't even need to worry about that yet. And then the night before, when, you know, it's due in 8 hours, 10, 12 hours time, I will literally be feeling that pressure because I'm an idiot and I've left it to the last minute. But I will absolutely, you know, get it done, and I'll knock it out the bag. And that's where pressure serves me well. There are times when pressure doesn't serve me well, and I'm wondering for me whether a lot of the I still often wonder whether I create the pressure on myself, or whether it's from other people or other external influences. That's what I'm pondering on at the moment, Kel.
Well, that's a huge thing, and I think that's a topic that we're going to need to really look into. Is this, do we create our own drama, really, that then creates that pressure? But I was just thinking, as you were saying that, to perform, I've got this situation at the moment. So as you all know, because I bang on about it every week, I'm studying at the moment. And I always leave my assignments till the last minute. I mean, it's notorious. Even in class, they're like, oh, Kelly, you'll start tomorrow. You know, I always get it done, but I always leave it till last minute, put myself under huge amounts of pressure, get it done. Then it's fine. It's fine. Now we've got this really lovely tutor this year, and she's brilliant. And she's just like, look, I appreciate we've all got stresses and strains of life because this is a part-time course. So look, as long as you've got it done by the end of the year, I'm not worried. Now, you know what that's done for me? I've got, brilliant.
I've got the summer off.
Yeah, I'm done. So I'm now 2 assignments behind. Two assignments behind. Just something that I'm trying to channel my whole career into, something that should be taking this mass precedence in my life, because this lovely lady, this lovely understanding lady has gone, it's all right, you know, as long as you get it in by the end of the month. So I've got to deal with myself, because otherwise I'm going to be so super stressed and it won't be productive. So I was just thinking when you were saying that, like, actually, what is going on in my brain that somebody is almost given me the okay to be a lazy bitch, because really that's what I'm doing, and procrastinating. And I've gone, thank you so much, that's really lovely. Why have I not got the grit to turn around and go, right, Kelly, you need to be self-discipline? I have none. Which is why I don't go to the gym, which is why I don't eat healthily, because I have no self-discipline.
Yeah, and you're not alone on that either. And I think that your beautiful, you know, your wonderful tutor will have absolutely thought she was doing the right thing.
Oh, she really does.
But actually, she's probably done you a disservice by doing that without even knowing it. But like you said, it comes down to self-discipline, and we are all guilty of that. And we are all, I think, wherever we look, the world we live in today will inflict pressure on us in one way or another, whether that be to look a certain way, to wear certain clothes, to have a certain image, to be a certain weight, to perform to a certain level, to raise our kids a certain way, to academically achieve, to be successful in business, you know, whatever that might look. There will be pressure from external influences, and that's whether, again, that's the pressure we put on ourselves because we look at these things, and actually that can be a catalyst for disaster. You know, you see all the time on socials now, and the marketing for them is bloody amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I nearly signed myself up to some funny kind of whatever Pilates the other day, and it kind of promised me that in 8 weeks I'd look like Pamela Anderson back in her day.
Have you seen Military Kinetics?
Yeah,
I've been nearly signed up to that because of a month, apparently.
Because I look at that body and I think, yeah, I want a bit of that, and they make it sound so easy. But the reality is that A, I know I wouldn't stick to it, and B, even if I did, I probably still wouldn't look like that. And then what happens is I go all guns blazing, and then I fall off the wagon, and then I feel really dreadful about myself, and then I'm going to berate myself, and then I'm a failure, and then I'm back, you know, to where I started. So I think, yeah, there will be nobody walking this planet that is not feeling the pressure in one way or another, and that could be from, you know, everything matters differently, whether that be, you know, doing the perfect family holiday to running a huge corporate business. But for that person involved, you know, the pressure is the same for them as whatever anybody else is feeling.
Yeah, and I think that's a really key point, and you touched on this earlier when we were talking about it. Pressure is going to be different for different people. Different people have different tolerance levels. So you may look at somebody and go, oh my God, I don't know how they manage under all that pressure. But that doesn't mean that you're not as good as them. It just means that your tolerance, your pressure settings are at a different, and that's okay, because your setting somewhere else along the line will be different to that other person. So again, comparison is the thief of joy. We shouldn't compare. So whatever you're doing throughout this podcast, just know that your pressure setting is going to be different to everybody else's, and that's absolutely
Yeah.
okay. Don't allow people to say to you, oh, you're no good under pressure, because again, we're feeding ourselves with an external narrative that doesn't belong to us. But again, it's coming back to, when is pressure not productive? When does it become toxic? And for me, that becomes when I'm not doing it for myself, I'm doing it for other people. And I certainly feel a lot of pressure to be a good mum for my boys. I feel a pressure to, be good enough at work. And that's a validation thing for me. So it's understanding that if you are doing things that put pressure on you that start to cause you stress, why are you doing that and for what benefit? And I think that's a really important thing. Obviously being a good mum is a good thing. I'm not saying it is, but at what point does trying to be a good mum become detrimental to you because you're breaking your neck to try and pay for a million different things, or you're trying to show up at every single thing that they do so that you're present in every way, or you're trying that? When does it become so detrimental to you that you actually aren't performing at all? I think that's...
And I think, being a good mum, being as that's the example we're on, what is being a good mum? What somebody will class as like, you're a great mum, will look very different to somebody else's expectation on what being a good parent looks like. And I think for all of us, we wholeheartedly, I do not profess to get this right. I mean, if anybody knows me and my family, I have raised batshit crazy kids. And I love them all dearly, but bloody hell have we had our moments, and we are that family, 100%. We are that family. This is why we live in the middle of nowhere, because we are that household in the street. So I absolutely don't profess to have had this, to get this right, but I absolutely wholeheartedly know that I do my best. I absolutely show up every day and I do my best. I don't always get it right, and there are some days I really can't be asked with it. I am raising 4 teenagers at the moment, but I do my best, and if nothing else, we can give ourselves credit for that. But again, just from parenting, we will be under pressure. My kids do not like school. They are rubbish at doing their homework. There is an expectation that if I'm a good parent, they will be doing their homework. I don't know about you, but I've got my youngest absolutely selling it to me that I am a dreadful mum because, if he doesn't get to have a lie-in on Monday and watch the football at some early hour. Now, the football will have been and gone by the time you guys see this. Who knows how that's going to go?
We'll tune in next episode. That's our kids.
Yes, that's a whole different story. But, again, and then there'll be judgment there. Well, so-and-so's mum, let them stay off, or so-and-so, whatever. Whichever way we go. But I think it's acknowledging that what works for one doesn't work for another. What somebody sees as an amazing thing, it does, somebody else will be like, absolutely not. And this goes back to where you say the pressure is great when it's for us and it aligns with us and it's for us to achieve or to learn or to grow for us. But when we are doing it to keep up with the Joneses, or to save image, or how we look to others, that's when it becomes toxic, and that's when we start to crumble, or where there's no recovery in amongst the pressure, when there's no let up and it is relentless in one way or another. That's then when I do feel it starts to become detrimental. I think it's kind of psychologically been proven that pressure for athletes, we all have pressure in life. We're never going to get life without it, in whichever way that looks. But for athletes, they're under pressure to perform, obviously, and that is really beneficial to them to a certain point. But once you go over that point, it becomes detrimental, and their performance will decline because now it's become overwhelming and the pressure has become too much. So I think it's starting to understand your own pressure threshold and what works for you and what type of pressure you can handle and what encourages you and motivates you and works well for you and what actually isn't. And then do not get into any kind of comparison, wars with anybody else, because we are all totally individual. If I had to stand up on stage and talk in front of 200 people, I actually would be able to do that. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. I normally have a lot to say about anything and everything, and I can talk the hind legs off a donkey. I would not feel that pressure. I'd want to do it well, but it wouldn't, bother me too much.
cripple
No,
you.
my
Yeah.
husband, if he had to stand on a stage in front of 200 people and talk, it would be his worst nightmare. And that doesn't mean because, you know, he's inadequate or useless in any way, you know, and he could easily then berate himself, oh, I'm just stupid, you know, I've got nothing to say, whatever, I'm not engaging. That is not a case. That's just not his jam, and he will absolutely survive much better in a different circumstance under pressure than me. So it's very much knowing your limits and what you're comfortable with, what you're not, and knowing when the pressure is doing you a solid and it's serving you well, and actually when it's just tipping you over the edge.
Yeah, and it does all come down to knowing your boundaries and knowing yourself, and then understanding. So if you do find yourself putting yourself under pressure to work all the hours God sends, to bring in a certain level of money, to do a certain amount of things, where is that coming from? And again, we go back to this on most of our kind of discussions, is you need to sit with where that feeling is coming from. And for me, I think when I think about being a good mum, I mean, it consumes me. It really does. And, you know, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing because it does make me really look at myself and where it's coming from. And I know that there is trauma around there. And I know that I carry guilt because, you know, obviously I'm divorced from their dad and kind of there's a feeling there that maybe I did something wrong by not keeping the family together for them, and you know I know what that feels like and things like that. So I've created in my mind this pressure to be this all singing, all dancing mother. I mean, they probably disagree. They probably think, oh, you're a miserable old bitch. What are you talking about, mum? But for me, I feel it in my gut. And what that does to a certain point is great. You know, it pushes me to be better and do more for them. But at some point, I then burn out and then I feel even more useless as a mother because I've not done everything that I feel I should be doing. And it comes back to that whole kind of, come on, Kelly, where is this coming from? Because you know deep down, I know I'm a good mum. The boys tell me I'm a good mum. You know, they love me and they give me all the physical signals I need to tell me that I'm a good mum. So this is on me now. And I have to figure out at what point to say, Kelly, enough is enough. You're not doing anybody any good. So what I would suggest is when you are feeling the pressure and it becomes too much, it becomes toxic, it's making you feel ill, it is emptying your cup, you need to sit with and find out where that is coming from and start to work on that, because you just need to be good enough. You know, that's what's important, and you need to feel that you're good enough inside yourself and not allow anybody else to tell you otherwise. Because the minute somebody comes in and says, well, I don't think you're parenting very well, okay, is that a reflection of me, or is that kind of, you know? So you really need to not allow other people to get in your head and to understand where those feelings are coming from if you feel your pressure is becoming a toxic pressure.
Yeah, I think as well, it's that external kind of flippant comments that you know, when it's our own pressure and it's for our own best purpose, then that's fine. But when it's pressure to adhere to somebody else's kind of expectation or standard, it goes back to that. And we've all had that. I mean, I've 100% been raised on my parenting over the years. Christ, you know, I am a people pleaser and I am a perfectionist, and I like to be seen to have everything in control and be doing everything perfectly. And then I became a mum, and that expectation went out the window because, you know, I was raising others, and certainly with my son, you know, I was that mum in the soft play that was having other very angry mums coming to hunt me down because, bless him, you know, he just can't wait in a line, and he doesn't understand why he should have to wait in a line to, you know, go down the slide, because he's so excited and so eager he has to just barge past everybody and go down the slide. Or, you know, and yes, the rules are you go down the slide and not up the slide, and yes, he has to walk up the slide because he wants to know why he can't walk up the slide, and if anything happens because he's gone up the slide. And yes, you know, little Joey might have been playing with that ball, but he really wants to have a go with that ball, and, you know, so he's just going to help himself to it, you know. And at that point, I learned to let go of so much, you know, expectation and pressure on myself, because it wasn't only on pressure on myself on how I was to be seen, but I wanted my children to be seen as the perfect kids, to look a perfect way, to speak in a, to be academic, to be strong, to kind of conduct themselves is what I felt was expected, so that we look like that perfect, 2.4 family. And unfortunately, that has been so far from the truth. But you know what? These have been my biggest life lessons. And without all these experiences and learning to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, I would literally be rocking in the corner by now.
And I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It's this perception. We'll see these well-behaved children in their immaculate dresses sat at a table with no devices, eating and drinking and having conversations. But we do not know what is going on there. Usually everybody has something going on, but because we have this perception that we've created, or other people through their little comments have made us question, when people are continuously asking, oh, how did your kids do at school? How did they get on in their GCSEs? Are you planning on having children? What do you do as a job? Now, these are all terrible conversation starters, and none of us do it on purpose. None of us think that by asking these questions, we're putting pressure on other people to think about how they're going to come across in their lives. But, that is what, in essence, we are doing when we apply these filters to people. So I'm not saying we need to go out there and mind what we say, because these conversations are going to happen. But it's how we respond in those moments. And the minute you feel less than, you're going to respond in a really bullshitty way. Oh, well, yeah, no, not too bad, thank you. Yeah, no, we're looking at our options, blah, blah. Rather than just going, well, my son is an academic. He's an awesome bloody chef. I mean, he cooks up a mean meal, but the exams were never really, for us, it was about getting him through school with his health in check. Or actually, I never wanted to have children, and we feel we need to explain, don't we? Well, that doesn't make me selfish, or I couldn't have them, or whatever. Actually, why do we feel this pressure put on us by other people and external expectations when we should just be bloody honest? And again, it's that authentic self. And I think everything we talk about is to try and unravel a little bit of those layers that we've had built around us from ourselves, from other people, to strip ourselves back and ask people to accept us who we are and as we are. And that comes back to that subject you raised, and I can't remember what it was, but I've just thought about it as I was talking about, what was it, Jode?
I have no idea.
There was something about that was a huge topic in itself. Well, anyway, we'll figure it out as we go along. But I just think we have to. Oh, do we create our own drama? Yes, that's really important.
Yeah. And I think, absolutely. I personally definitely do. I do. I think I have a lot of drama created for me as well. But I think I can be my own biggest critic, and I can put the pressure on myself more than anybody. And I think that is a personality thing. I know if my mum was listening to this, she would 100% say, Jode, you've been hard on yourself from the moment you come out of nappies. And actually, I can see it in my son. He is really self-critical, and he has very high expectations all of the time. And if something doesn't work out, he will 100%, berate himself for that. He feels the pressure. He never wants to let people down. So I think, some people have those tendencies more than others. But equally, I think I also get uncomfortable when things are A-okay and I don't have the drama and I don't have the pressure. I almost wonder whether I moan like hell about the pressure I'm under. I'm trying to, and my husband will hear this all the time, for goodness sakes, I'm trying to help run your business and I'm trying to start my own business and I'm doing Spirit and Sass, which I love, but I don't have as much time as I'd like to do. And I am also a full-time cleaner, cook, housemaid, skivvy, servant, whatever. But actually, when all this dies down and I'm a bit like, okay, it's like life's ticking along, and then I get really uncomfortable in that moment. It's almost like I'm waiting. So what's going to happen? What's next? Where, I'm not used to living in that mundane, okay space. So then I think I almost inadvertently create or over dramatize something, because that's probably where I'm most comfortable without even knowing it. Because that's what I know.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I think sometimes when you've when you've grown up and you run on adrenaline, you know, because that's what life has thrown at you. You've got to respond to varying different situations, and you've got to help people and manage things. You live your life on a level of adrenaline, and when that has gone, your body doesn't feel motivated to achieve or to do things anymore, and you kind of just feel a bit lost. And it's in those moments of lost that you've got to sit and think to yourself, okay, this is not healthy for me to be running at this level all the time, you know. So how can I kind of manage my life so that I've got enough of this adrenaline to motivate myself and do things without creating it? And I don't think, and when I say create it, I don't mean you throw a hand grenade into your relationship just because you want some drama. It's more about the feelings within inside yourself. You know, you start to feel uncomfortable. You start to think, you know, is somebody thinking badly of me? Or did I say something wrong? Or I haven't heard from somebody else? The overthinking starts to kick in. And that's the drama we kind of create, that internal questioning of, oh my God, this is quiet. What have I done? Where's this going? What's going to come up? Something's looming, something's building. And then we create this false sense of anxiety, which then attracts that energy in. So you'll find the drama then does come in, because that's what we're looking for inadvertently, subconsciously. That's what we're looking for. And we remember, guys, right back to one of our first sort of podcasts, energy will attract energy. So if that's what you're feeling and that's what you're putting out, that is what you're going to bring in. So learning to sit with yourself in those moments of quiet and not overthinking is a real kind of task and something to try and work towards, I would say.
Yeah, I think so. And I think as well, for me as well, it's a bit of a, I think that certainly when you get, you know, to my age and, you know, hormones are all awry, and I know we keep saying we'll do a whole separate topic on this, but there's still, if we've been that person that's kind of always, you know, been kind of the head of the household, even though I know, you know, stereotypically, you know, it's often the men, but actually behind every good man is a stronger woman. I truly believe this. Sorry there if any males are listening to this, but
we love you too.
We love you too, and everybody has a purpose. But I do believe that. But actually, when I've got to a point, and I could probably make myself feel guilty for this, but there is still a pressure to be able to kind of still logistically sort everybody's day out, make sure everybody has everything they need every single day, my kids and my husband included, you know, to run, you know, to know what we're having for dinner every evening, to make sure that, you know, there's food in that, whilst trying to still build my careers, do whatever. And then when you get to suddenly my age, you get, you know, if you're certainly perimenopausal, I do feel you do get the like no fucks given hormone kick in a little bit. That is definitely, you know, a bit of a thing where you suddenly think, nah, I'm not doing that anymore. And the shock that creates for everybody else around you when they're like, what do you mean you're not doing that anymore? What do you mean I've got to cook my own dinner? You know, or why haven't you washed my washing? Well, you know, what, I don't even know how to operate the washing machine, you know, or no, you know, I can't pick you up from there, whatever, you know, because that's just not working for me. Or God forbid, if I was having a night out and you know, what, you're going out again twice in a week, you know. But you get to that point where actually you take a little bit of stock of life, and your kids are growing up, circumstances, everything around you is changing, but there's still a bit of a pressure to, you know, to create the perfect family holiday. Everybody now, you've almost got adult kind of personalities now, you know, within the household. So they almost inadvertently, without realizing now, because they can articulate things much better and they have so much more of a stronger, you know, opinion on things as to when they were 3, you know, and they're now like nearly 20 or something. You're under pressure now to suddenly try and appease all these personalities, and you're trying to make everything work and juggle all this and help them now with their lives, their careers, their relationships, you know, all of that, all the pressure of showing up as a good mum there while still trying to build your own careers and keep your own sanity and move on. And then you're trying to deal with the hormones floating around that are quietly in your ear going, I just really can't be asked to do any of this anymore. I just want to literally veg on the sofa and watch, you know, Loose Women. So it's a very much, I think pressure will be at different stages of our lives and it will serve a purpose. But actually, I think it's very much acknowledging where you're at in life, what's working, what's not. And it's okay to say, yeah, I used to be able to manage that, but now I can't and I'm not prepared to do it anymore. And somebody else is going to have to pick up the slack. They might not like it, but they will do it. And that's okay. And it's the same whether that be within family lives, whether that be in job roles that once you were absolutely thriving in, you loved, you were nailing out, and then actually you're starting to fall out of love with it. The pressure, is becoming too much, or it doesn't light you up as you once did, or you've, circumstances changed there. It's okay to say, yeah, I'm not prepared to do that free of charge anymore, or work all these extra hours, or actually I'm just not, I'm not prepared to carry the load for somebody else, or this just isn't working for me anymore. Again, for relationships, this applies to every area of our life. And I know we've spoke about this in previous episodes. So we go through seasons, and in those seasons we will have different pressures depending on where we're at and what we're doing. But we evolve as we go through our life journey. We evolve, circumstance change, pressure change, and it is okay to go with the flow. And what once did work, or once we were prepared to do, we're not long, it's okay to no longer be prepared to do it. That is absolutely fine. But I think it's knowing that when the pressure is serving you well, and the pressure of a job or a relationship or expectation from family, however that might look, is serving you well, and it's keeping you motivated to do these things well, or when actually it's gone now over the top, it's gone past that point and it's become too much, it's actually doing you a disservice, it's overwhelming, you're heading towards breakdown, and things need to change. Nobody should have to kind of put up and shut up. That's not the world we live in anymore. And it's okay to speak up and say, actually, this is not working, whatever that might be, or I need help with this, or we need to make a few changes, or we need a cleaning rota, or somebody else needs to help with dinner a bit, whatever that might look. That is okay.
And just please don't let anybody tell you who you are. This has been the biggest learning curve for me. You get lots of people chip in, and I know this is probably a bit off topic with pressure, but you get people chip in and go, oh, well, you're this, or oh, you put yourself down, or oh, your kid said this, or just stop taking other people's opinions on board and creating this person about who you are. I just think that's really, really important. And the one last thing I wanted to quickly touch on briefly to do with pressure is age-related pressure and the way we look. And this is something, probably because it's really topical for me at the moment, they say most people hit a little bit of a certain birthday where they feel the kind of, the midlife blues or whatever. And I know for my mum, and I'm sure she won't mind me sharing, when she hit 30, she was a nightmare. She really hated it, dreaded it, didn't want it coming whatsoever. I sailed through 30, 40, horrific. I didn't want it. I honestly I was a real horrible person to be around, because I just didn't want to be 40. I mean, it's ridiculous. How can you not want to be something? And it's really bizarre, because in some ways, I feel the best version of myself and the most confident version of who I am than I ever have done. But what's happening is, physically, I'm changing, because and it's a good thing. Age is, I'm here, I'm living, I'm gaining wisdom and experience. I know enough about myself to know that that's a great thing. But I'm also taping my face up every evening with collagen tape, wearing a LED mask, and desperately trying to fight this, because I still want to look attractive, or not look my age, or there feels like there's a certain pressure to look a certain way and to be glamorous and to be, and why do we feel, where is that coming from? And I guess for me it comes back to self-confidence, validation, and some stuff that's come up for me that I need to work on. But there is a lot of pressure out there to look and feel and be seen in a certain way, and that's not healthy either. So again, if you are feeling the feels of, oh God, I look too craggy, or I'm too fat, or I don't wear clothes that look like that, or that's coming from somewhere else, and you need to feel good, but you need to understand where that is coming from too.
And I think as well, just to quickly touch on that, it's different when you're doing stuff that you don't particularly want to do, but there's an expectation, or you're trying to please somebody else, whether you still want to look good for your husband, or your partner, or whatever, or the internet shows all these wonderful women at a certain age, and you're like feeling really inadequate for that. there's a difference from that kind of pressure and doing it because you're trying to appease others. Like for me, I am never going to be the type to, and I wish I was, and I admire anybody that could, but I am not going to be the type to say, yeah, I'm just going to age gracefully. That is not me, because I wouldn't age gracefully. I am not going to rock the full head of grey hair and embrace the wrinkles and all the stretch marks. And even though that, you know, these stretch marks are because I've, you know, birthed 4 beautiful babies, you know, and I know all that, but I would not embrace that. That would not make me feel good about myself. Like, I get my Botox done, even though I'm a holistic therapist. That's a whole different story. But I feel, but for me, that the contentment, the self-confidence that brings me, not because I want to look, you know, a lot younger or I want to look to somebody else. I just want to feel nice in myself. And I'm doing that for me, because I genuinely feel better for it, and it makes me feel better, and it makes me have more confidence, and I can go out and I can hold my head high, and I am just a bit more comfortable in my skin. That is also okay. You don't have, you know, if you want to kind of spend money on doing things that make you genuinely feel good for you, and that, you know, that brings you joy and confidence and whatever that might bring you, however that might look, that is okay. I think it's when you're doing it because of the pressure of external influences or to please somebody else, and actually it doesn't make any real difference to you, or it doesn't align with you. That's when it's not okay.
So again, it comes back to, doesn't it, who are you bloody doing this for?
Yeah.
You know, if you're doing it for you and that truly makes you feel good and happy, then absolutely bloody good on you. And because it does reflect in your energy, it does, you know, if you're doing it because that's what's expected of you, or somebody's putting pressure on you to look a certain way, feel a certain way, perform in a certain way, do a certain way, then that's never going to end particularly well. And when that starts to turn toxic, stressful, too much, then there's a problem there. And that's when the work has to be done on understanding, okay, is this helping me? Is this benefiting me? Or actually, is this doing me in? And that's really where I think that has to come to.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to not going back over old ground, but comparison and everything else like that. You know, there will be some people, you know, and I know quite a lot that will be like, you're an absolute fool for spending, I don't know, £250 on, you know, Botox, what an absolute wally. And, you know, I would have worked hard and saved hard for that. But that value to me is worth that £250. There'll be others that will never understand that. They'll never get that. And that is also okay. But it doesn't mean that they are right and you are wrong, or I'm shallow or whatever for kind of acting or doing or wanting these things. Like, it is okay to just honor yourself and know what really, you know, does make you feel better in yourself, and investing in that. And what that looks like for you will look like for something different for somebody else. That could be a weekend away. It could be a blinking boot camp. It could be, I don't know, 1,000,001 protein powders and collagens and clean living, you know, and doing everything holistically. And that is also okay, because that works for them. But it's what we all do is right for us. What's not right is when we're trying to influence our views on somebody else and making them feel bad for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I must say, Jade, you do look bloody beautiful and glamorous for it. So I am all for it. Lovely. Absolutely. I'll keep going with collagen tape and my LED mask in the vain hope that it might just kind of keep me looking youthful.
I'm a lot older than you.
Yeah,
I've gone past the collagen tape in red light mask.
I think I've gone bloody past and going to be picking my face up off the floor soon. But there we go. That's another thing for me to deal with. Crikey, God, my therapist is going to have a field day. But no, I think really what this again all boils back to is just being kind to yourself. Knowing who you are, putting your boundaries in place, and just knowing that you aren't alone. We're all feeling it at different places at different times, and what you feel when you feel it, it's absolutely fine. So don't ever let anybody tell you differently.
And honour that as well. You know, if you're having a crappy day or you're frustrated about something, then that is okay, and it's okay to honour and acknowledge that. You know, we don't always have to put on a brave, happy face. We don't always have to, you know, go out there and be love and light. It's okay some days to just have a shitter of a day and not feel it, and other people will have to pick up the pieces. That's just life. But yeah, be kind.
Be kind. Surround yourself with great people.
And to everybody else.
I like a little sign off. Be kind to yourself and everybody else. Love it. Okay, well, I think that pretty much wraps this
It does.
session up.
And we've actually done all right, because bearing in mind, we really did struggle today on what we were going to talk about, which is unheard of for Kel and I. We have no problems talking. That is the easy part for us. So, but yeah, we've got an episode in. Hopefully it will be, to everybody's expectation, and people will gain some value from that. And if not, well, hey ho, look out for next week's episode.
Ooh, what will it bring? What will it bring?
I'm not going to say in case we have another moment and we go off topic. So
you never know what's going to come next.
Exactly.
Crikey. Have a really wonderful rest of your week and weekend, guys. And we will definitely be back one way or another with something or another next week. So thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.